Hello there, Ray here, and we are here on ProtoTech. And last time we went ahead and built up this huge wall of lava to allow us to advance the RNG manipulation far enough so that we could get lightning to strike in a specific chunk. Now today we are going to have it so that every time we load a new chunk inside of this 80 by 80 chunk area where we have planned out for our farm to be, we will get a new lightning strike to occur. So essentially what we got is an area here that is going to be loaded by the player, and then off in the distance we're going to start loading chunks that aren't being loaded by the player, and every time we load a new one we're going to be able to get a lightning strike to occur in a very specific chunk where we are standing. So out there in the distance we have a platform which we will build an autosave detector on top of, and then once the autosave is detected, then we'll go ahead and start loading chunks out there, and we'll slowly load chunks. Every time we load a chunk, it'll cause a lightning strike to occur. And I think we're going to plan on loading about 450 chunks, probably one every other game tick, and this is about the speed we need it to be for our trap horse farm. So the way that we're going to load new chunks is that we're going to create updates along a path, essentially a big sky grid, and as the power goes through it, it's going to load more chunks, and every time it loads it, we can get the results we want. So I'm going to go ahead and start building these long grids out, and I have designed a machine which will allow us to do this more easily. So next we're going to have to build up some flying machines which allow us to AFK and place down, generate cobblestone, create a cobblestone bridge across the world going out towards the end of 80 by 80 chunk area. And then this new flying machine that I came up with allows you to be able to not only create a cobblestone walkway, but also place rails on it automatically while it being AFK too. Let me grab the supplies for that and start building it. So I got the flying machine all built up here, and you can see it takes a little while to build it when you're not quite used to it. But hopefully I'll become more proficient at it. Okay, so we decided to make it so that the area where we're going to have the chunk loading is going to go from north to south. It's going to bypass our lightning farm. This way we can run the machines the entire 80 chunk distance that the lightning farm could be inside of. And this is the only area where we can also have the chunk loading occurring inside these chunks. So to maximize the amount of distance we can move these machines, if we stuck them on the far side, we're going to run them, fly them 80 chunks that way. And I built up all the ones we need. We're going to do a set of 4 of them, and then there's a set of 2 over there. That way when we load all these chunks, there won't be a 5 by 5 grid, so there won't be any entity processing chunks. And this is a design I never showed before, but I made this design where it's possible to AFK and create a cobblestone generator, also having a rail system on top of it too at the same time while you're AFKing. This design is 100%, but it should get us pretty far. And I do got some backup lava buckets in case they get destroyed. That's the main problem that could occur. I went ahead and built all these up and we're ready to fly them. And I need a fishing pole to kind of notice if I'm AFKing them properly. So what I'm going to do is hop into these minecarts. Then I'm going to place, or actually I'm going to try to get to my guys automatically holding down right click. So pretty much a guy will be like spamming this rod. And then once my guys spamming the rod using the F11 trick, then I will switch over to lava bucket and do it. But for now I'm just going to show you guys how to run this. And then when I do that switching, it's going to switch to my other monitor, which won't be able to be easily visible for you guys. So let's go ahead and remove. It has some banners here just holding stuff. Oh, I don't want to break everything. Just want to break the banners. Just the banners. And there's one more banner. There's 4 banners so the machine doesn't accidentally take off. I was placing down all the different components in here. And it's raining, could possibly lightning, which would be kind of silly because we could get some lightning strikes and some trap horses in here. So what I need to do is I can demonstrate for you guys. Essentially, I'm going to be placing the lava here. Hopefully, I did everything correctly. and kind of aim down here, and I have the rails in my offhand. It can create, yeah, you can see it create cobblestone on the side there from the lava. And then I also have it so that when the trapdoor opens up, I can place lava above it, and then I can also place the rails on the side of the trapdoor. And you can kind of see how this can be a infinite railway flying machine producing thing. I don't know what you want to call this officially. The other one I called a AFK bridge builder. Infinite AFK bridge builder. This isn't quite infinite, but it pretty close. You can see there was like a little visual glitch where it looked like my guy was placing lava over where the rails happen, where the rails should be. And there is occasion that this small chance that the person could actually place the lava over there, but then it would get destroyed by a rail, in which case you would lose your lava bucket. Usually I usually can run this thing about 1,000 to 8,000 meters before I run into a problem. Sometimes you can go like on, like one time I ran this thing for like 8 hours without a problem, so it's like kind of random. The only problem is the player is holding right click, so if the game doesn't allow him to play something during the same time the trap door is open, it's a possibility that it could fail, in which case it wouldn't work. So this is kind of pretty much how it works. The player would AFK here and be able to... Alright, there's also a rail duper. I guess I didn't show you guys that. Yeah, there's a rail duper right back here in this corner that is duplicating rails, and that's how my rails are getting resupplied in my offhand, which is pretty cool. Pretty good. There's also an armor stand up front that has Frostwalker boots on that is freezing the ice before it moves. It's kind of cool. You notice the ice block itself is actually help moving the rest of the machine forward, which is not something you could normally do. You can't normally use a water source to push blocks, but we freeze the ice, then we use the frozen ice to push blocks in front of it. There's even an attachment for this thing. I just had to put on 2 redstone blocks. I can actually keep all these rails power too, so it's like an infinite power rail system, which is pretty awesome. And I may even like do some tweaking with this to make it more reliable. I just have to put in some more like safety devices to check for circumstances that occurred. So I finished AFKing this flying machine all the way to the far end of it. So we're about 80 chunks south of where we started. And now we just have to repeat this process about 6 more times with all the other flying machines. And then we should have enough rails so that we can create updates through all these chunks. Kika, Noot, as well as Lynn helped me fly these flying machines to the far end. So now we have all of them down here, all 6 of them, and they have produced these cobble walkways as well as with the rails on top. Now all we have to do is get it so that we can send signals using these rails across the entire system and create updates through them. So now we came in here and we placed in all the observers as well as blocks along here. And this way we can create updates along the entire system. So essentially what's going on is that each of these rails is kind of like a way to transport signals. And what we'll do is we put the observer so that when this rail will light up, then this observer will notice it and then power this block, and then it will light this rail and it will continue this onwards. And we have about 2 observers per chunk. And the way that we have this set up is that we're going to load these chunks I believe every 2 game ticks, the way that we got this whole system set up. So that every other game tick will load a chunk, and then this will create lightning over there by the farm. And if we want to, we can always add in more and create more updates along the entire system. And the updates start towards the center, and then they go out back and forth like a S, and about 40 chunks along each of them. And then this side goes back and forth. And what we got 4 over there that are creating updates, all chunks right beside each other, and then we got a space, and then we got 2 over there. That way we're not creating a 5 by 5 chunk and creating entity processing chunks in the center. And then those 2 ones, yeah, they're just part of this one, but they're just spaced out a little farther, so we got 2 more chunks over there. And essentially, yeah, this is one half of it, and another half is on the other side, which is going to do the other half of the chunks that to be loaded. Essentially, we're going to be loading 450 chunks, and this will allow us to be able to load a chunk every other game tick, and this is what we need for our trap horse farm. So we're here at the autosave detector, and Earth Computer as well as Example built this up, and Example did a video about it. It's a compact autosave detector that reacts pretty quickly and essentially can be detect autosave every single game tick. So that's very useful. And it's sitting on the border here so that essentially there's 2 clocks going off, and if they become out of sync, then this will be able to detect it and send a signal through. And we just got 4 of these clocks because the clocks are about 4 game ticks cycles each. So we need 4 of them to do every single game tick. And then essentially when the power goes off, or when it does detect autosave, we got it going over here. And then I built up this timer. This is essentially just a 45-second, big 45-second clock. And the power will come out of the autosave and it'll go into this clock, and then we'll disable the autosave detector. If you want to know more about this autosave detector, I will put the link down in the description. Now, once it comes into the clock, essentially this will be able to keep track of when the game is going to produce autosave. And essentially on servers, every 45 seconds, the server will try to save what's going on in the world. That way, if it happens to crash or anything, it can just go all the way back to that last time it did that save, which is only 45 seconds. So at most, you only lose a little bit of progress in your world. So we got some circuitry here to reset it when we're far away. If you happen to leave these chunks, then of course the clock will not be running, and then it won't be synchronized with the autosave. So we have some wiring that's coming over from where we're going to build the farm. It comes over here, and it just resets this autosave detector. Essentially, once the power comes through this machine, it's going to come around here, and it's going to push item from one dropper into this dropper. And what this is going to do is going to move this piston block down into position, and then the next time the autosave occurs, then it's going to go through this block and into the clock. And this just gives it time so that if the player is over here and he walks away, then the autosave detector will go off. Once the player is away, then it will be fine. The next signal will go into the clock and it will be perfect, so it can go around in the cycle. So when the autosave detector goes off, you can see that it will send a signal through that block. And then after the signal has went through this block, it will come around down this repeater chain right here, and then essentially it will pulse this dropper and drop item over to this side, which will power this piston. This is the piston that will put the redstone block in, turning the signal. And this does 2 things. It prevents the signal from pointing into there, and it also sends the power backwards, which essentially locks up these clocks that are part of the autosave detector. And the reason why we lock these clocks up is because when they're updating, they can update the next door chunk, and we need that chunk to not be updated until a certain time. So this way, once it's locked, then we have all the power into here, and we don't have to worry about updates occurring on the edge of this chunk. So I went ahead and had the autosave detector go off, and you can see how it works. We got a pulse going around in this clock, and then when the pulse comes over here, it's going to update some chunks over there. And you can see it also goes back through again and gets kept inside this clock. And these chunks on this side, all these, pretty much this whole entire clock, will all be loaded by the player, so we don't have to worry about it accidentally unloading this by the player or anything else. And then once the power comes through, you see it goes up here and it goes into this T flip-flop, which is going to either put power down this line over here, or it's going to put power down this line over here. And Earth Computer set up this part here. What this does is allows us to put updates into these extra chunks that we built out here. And essentially, one side is going to go to this row of chunks and this row of chunks. So press F3 and G. You can see that this chunk here is up by itself. And then next time when the thing goes off, it's not going to go down this row, but it's instead going to choose this row. And then it's going to go down this set of chunks. This is important because when we start loading all these chunks over here, it's going to take a while for them to unload. So essentially the game can only unload a set amount of chunks, about 100 chunks. So it's going to take several game ticks for the game to unload all these chunks. Now you can see we also went ahead and connected up these different rows that we built ahead earlier. And like I said, it's a big S. So the first chunk goes off that direction, it comes back down here, and then we connect these two ends up, and then it goes back down that way, and back and forth, and then this does the same thing. And this is just the center part here. We hook these up together. This is going to load 450 chunks in total. So after all those chunks have been loaded, then the next autosave will come by, and we have to allow some of them to unload. So what will happen is that these first couple of chunks here will give it time for the game to unload it. So right after autosave, it's going to start loading this chunk, and then that chunk, and the next one after that. And by the time it goes through these couple of chunks, then all the rest will have unloaded, and then we can reload them up again. So at the very end of this piece here, we have it so that either side comes together and they will both hook up together, and then they go on into the entire system. And there is essentially 450 different chunks that are going to be loaded here. It's 80 chunks long, and this is what we use those flying machines to do. Easily put in all this cobblestone as well as put in all the rails. So it wasn't too hard for us to come in and put in some observers as well as blocks. You guys might notice this island over here, and this is the island that's a replica of the Skyblock Island. So you're supposed to have the tree as well as the dirt. And Ed Example built up the first one, and then 0xing this, and he's seen it wasn't quite perfect as the original Skyblock one, so he made the island the same shape, the tree the same shape as well, and it's supposed to be a chest with some stuff in it. I think that got moved. And 0x even came over here and built up the sand variation that's just like on the real one. As you can see, there is actually floating sand in this one too, and it has the cactus, and I believe in the chest it's supposed to have some materials in it. Can't remember exactly what materials. Okay, some obsidian, melon, and pumpkin. I think that chest is supposed to have like lava bucket and 2 ice ones, but mine got moved. Pretty funny, you can actually play Skyblock on a server just by building it up yourself and sticking with the rules. I think it's pretty cool. We actually had to move one of his chests. I think actually, yeah, that chest over there was on the chunk border. And when chests are on a chunk border, they can actually create updates to the next chunk. And that was a problem, so we had to move that chest. And we also found a dungeon underneath of this world that was also causing chunk updates during the stream. So we went ahead and removed the chest. There was actually 2 chests in that one dungeon, and they both of them were updating the next door neighboring chunks, which we cannot have for the system. So we went ahead and removed those as well. We're making great progress on the lightning farm. So we got that lava wall that's over there off in the distance, as well as we removed any other lava, as well as grass that's causing updates. So that way we can advance the RNG with that lava wall. And then we're out here on the edge, we have built up the autosave detector, which can detect the autosave very quickly, and then put that signal into our clock, which will hold the autosave so we know when exactly the game will unload these outside chunks. So right after the game unloads those chunks, we can come in and use the signal to go back out there and reload them. And every time the game loads a new chunk, and every time the game loads another chunk out there, it will try to produce a lightning strike over there by the farm. And that's why we continue to load all those new chunks. We went ahead and placed in the entire grid of 450 chunks. So the chunk grid is pretty massive. As you can see, we're on one end of it. And if we fly this way, we'll eventually hit the other end. It's 80 chunks long. And what the system does is it's just going to send that signal along these rails as well as observers. It took us quite a while to put in all these observers, but it really helped out that we had those flying machines that put in the main cobblestone as well as the rails automatically being AFK. And then we just came in here and fixed up the ends as well. And then this half is pretty much the same thing. And here's the other end of it. And you can see the flying machines that we crashed into the sides. And we also closed off the ends to make it loop back again. The next thing we have to do is go over there to that very specific chunk and build up a farm to collect all the trap horses, because every single lightning strike that is produced by this grid over here is going to produce 100% of the time a trap horse, and these trap horses we can open up and make them into horsemen. And then we need a machine that can open them up and turn them into horsemen, as well as we want to kill them off very quickly, since we're going to have about, oh, what is it, 10 trap horses every second come through the system. And then we need to also sort out the horses, or the loot that comes from them, because we want to get the protection 8 helmets and we want to get the diamond ones. So yeah, that will all be for next episode. And I want to say thank you for joining me as I have fun in survival, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.